we're moving into the final Q&A where you can ask all of the presenters questions that you didn't get in. We're going to now do that. So I do need to let you know that the pro bono presenter is back, and then we have all of today's presenters if you want to ask them questions. So now we're going to transition to that part.
It's not so much a question for me, but I realized that hearing the questions asked by the audience, there's a misconception about the provisional patent. So I like one of you to explain, there's nothing called provisional patent actually. The provisional patent is not granted anyway. So please explain to the audience the difference between the provisional patent application and non-provisional application.
Okay, this is Ray Van Dyke. A provisional patent application is something that the Patent Office gives you that's a temporary thing. It will expire and does not become public unless you want it to. But at the end of the year, you must convert it to a full U.S. application, a utility application. All right, I think that answers your question.
Yes, this young lady here.
This was earlier regarding licensing. Something that wasn't mentioned, isn't licensing usually done on a short-term agreement? It's like 3 years, and I would imagine if your product is good, then you can renegotiate.
So when I represent a licensor, I don't need. So she asked about the time of a license agreement or the term. Generally, license agreements today are 3 years with a 3-year renewal. When I represent a licensee, a manufacturer, I always try to ensure there's an optional renewal. But I've done 5-year deals with 5-year renewals. I did one deal that actually had 3 potential 5-year terms, so it could have gone as long as 20 years. When there's a successful program, the licensee, the manufacturer, doesn't want to lose that program.
I'm just going to plus one, Stephen, on that. I just want to add to that. So don't lean on necessarily a professional to make that deal. You know, what I mean by that is, Stephen, you can. That's no problem for me. Hello. Excuse me. I can be loud. Yeah. Thank you. I would just say, like, you don't always have to lean on a professional to make that deal for you, because obviously they have a certain deal that works for them that's been working. Now, again, Stephen can lead you in the right direction. There's a lot of great licensing folks in the room, too, that can. But you have to use your discernment as an inventor and use a lot of those things that we've learned all weekend, right? You know, asking questions. But what I do say is if you can get your product to be commercialized, again, get some sales. You can walk into any office with your product and tell them what you will accept. And I say that with the deepest amount of experience. I did this myself. I'm just going to tell you really quick. I had the product, the Bottle Rocket. You can look it up. It's a consumer wine opener product. I sold 1 million pieces through Facebook, selling to men between 19 and 29. Then I sold another 1 million pieces to women between the ages of 35 and 50. I used that empirical data to take that to HSN at $29.99, and I sold 125,000 pieces in 3 months. I then got a deal with All-Star, who's the company that does the products, you know, Snuggie, you know, all these. I'm good friends with those guys. And instead of going to them and saying, oh, I'll take whatever deal you hand out, I said, well, this is the deal I'm going to hand out to you, which is you can have the product in the as seen on TV section. I'll maintain retail. I'll run your digital. You're going to run media, and it's going to push my brand. I'm going to keep live shopping in the rest of the world. Would you like to do it? And they said, with great honor. And they sold 500,000 pieces. I sold another 2 million. So this is what I'm saying as an inventor. You get to make your deal, like I told you last night in our event. When you look at Shark Tank, a lot of times, you're standing there hoping that this guy with money is going to hand you it. And I say to you, well, you want all those guys jumping over the table, and then you get to make the decision. So sell, sell, sell. Again, patent and protect. And then what? Sell, sell, sell. Yes, thank you. Sorry. I'm teaching them. Yeah.
Next question.
No questions? You're going to crush us if you don't have a question.
So like I said earlier, I like to ask questions when nobody else is asking questions. So I think I didn't really hear the concluding remarks of the last panel of how small business is playing, or how the AI is it's two questions, two parts. So just first is what's the answer of how AI is going to help small businesses in the whole probably intellectual game. And secondly, simultaneously, I think all the big players, right, from Google, from Amazon, from Facebook, from whoever, and also Chinese player, Alibaba, Baidu, and those folks are, you know, chaining out big money, big names into getting as many patents as possible into AI arena. So if for small business, individuals have some ideas in AI, how all of us here, inventors, play the AI game in patent or in those areas. So two parts of the question.
Stand up. So there are really two parts to answering your question.
Take the community
So, so there are two aspects to answering your question. One is how is AI helping us as a small business, right? And in that vein, we talked about how artificial intelligence is being used by some data organizations like LexisNexis to provide you better data in pursuing a patent strategy or defending and protecting your copyrights or defending and protecting your trademarks. We also talked about how artificial intelligence can be used to enhance, for example, SBIR proposals when you go to get a grant. We also discussed how artificial intelligence is making business better and making our lives better. The two examples I used were in accelerating lab experiments today, and then also making suggestions for you as an individual going forward. So those suggestions that I mentioned about, you know, what song do you want to listen to today, or what food would be right for you today? Well, that applies to your business as well. Maybe artificial intelligence will tell you work more on marketing today and less on sales and less on production and less on bottleneck identification. So you're going to see artificial intelligence making suggestions in all of those areas. So those are some ways artificial intelligence will help you out. And then that also covers the vein of how artificial intelligence can be used as part of a patent application. This is the second box of stuff we talked about, second channel. How is that part of a patent application that then you file to protect some process that you're working on today? And so those were the areas, and I guess that would be the statement I would provide as a summary of stuff we talked about. Does that help you out? Sure.
I just want to plus one him on that, but I'm going to say that artificial intelligence actually is more important to you than you think. Does anybody use Facebook? Yes? Does anybody sell anything on Facebook? Okay, I do. So my partner in the back, Jake, does too. And we did very well using artificial intelligence actually to sell millions of wine openers. So if you want to know something really quickly, why it will help your business is you can make money from artificial intelligence. So the way Facebook works, write this down. So a lot of people will say to you, pay me $5,000 a month to let me run your social media campaign, right? And I'm going to put some content and some posts. Unless you have millions of dollars, you cannot build a brand, okay, this way. However, if you have a small amount of money, and you can test on Facebook by using the artificial intelligence that is in Facebook. So basically what is happening, every time that you put something in Facebook, you are educating a robot, okay? I'm going to make this as clear and easy because a lot of people in the room I don't think know what artificial intelligence is. Does everybody know what it is? Really? Raise your hand if you know what it is. Okay, half the room knows what it is. So it's our job to educate you. So really quick, crash course. Anytime you put something into Facebook, you're programming a robot, anything. If you're stalking your ex-wife, you're telling Facebook that there's something about this person that you want to keep learning, okay? So that's gonna tell them a lot about you. Maybe you're insecure, maybe you're curious. Here's a bunch of different ads I'm going to start throwing at you, right? Now, every time someone puts something in, so let's say I see some purple socks and Steven's a flashy guy, I see Shinesty comes up, which Shinesty is a company that sells these crazy suits. I see a Shinesty ad and I tag Steven. Steven, should I buy this for you? Or should I tell your wife, whatever? He would write back. So the first input was, I tagged Steven. Okay, that's an input. So when you are programming artificial intelligence, it's a series of inputs and outputs, right? So when I program it, I put something in, I say, Steven is my friend, he likes this thing. Now, Facebook's algorithm packs up, what is Steven like? Okay, we're gonna learn all about Steven. Steven drives a Volvo. He has this kind of watch. He's got a Ferrari in the driveway. He's got a wife and a girlfriend. No, I'm just kidding. His girlfriend is beautiful and wonderful. He doesn't need that. She's got 10 boyfriends. Like, it immediately makes a consumer model of Steven. Now, Steven is my customer at Shinesty, right? So now Facebook goes, okay, perfect audience, boom. Now those ads start flowing to people that look exactly like Steven. And guess what? We're gonna sell 1 million coats to guys that look just like Steven. Now, you don't wear coats like Steven, so we would never even touch you with an ad because we would need a whole different thing for you, right? Because we're not gonna change him. So the way Facebook works is off of a series of yeses and a series of nods, just like you do when you go to a fair and the guy says, would you like one? Did you like it? Da, da, da. You know, they're bringing you into this kind of incantation. Now it's emotional. Okay, so this is where it gets really exciting. You ready? You guys look really smart, so you're gonna be smarter when I'm done with you. And I'm teaching you, I'm a high school dropout, just so you know. Okay. So, are you ready? So here's where it gets exciting. Do you remember when Facebook changed the like button to being emotional, like happy, sad, mad, don't like it, whatever? Remember that? It was kind of cool, right? You were like, I don't like that, because it always felt bad when somebody said something sad, like their mom died, and you liked it. You're like, ugh, doesn't feel good. So this is what Facebook does, and the reason I know this is because I used to make these cute little quizzes with a partner of mine that kind of became a big deal. They're the ones that say, like, what type of news, what do your news say about you? You know, what is your Game of Thrones character? What type of pizza are you? And we use those to polarize people to buy products. So that was about 8 years ago. Long story short, those quizzes are very useful for lots of other things, and it's been an amazing ride. So we use those products to actually sell things to you on a regular basis. So it's what you're telling us. It's nothing that Facebook's doing to you. You keep typing it in, so stop if you don't want us to know, okay? So back to those little emotions, okay, you ready? So when you are putting in an emotion, like I like this, I love this, I feel a certain way, Facebook's algorithm takes information about you into its AI and it learns that somebody like you is angry every day at 12:45 because your boss came in, yelled at you, didn't give you your break, and now you'd like a beer, okay? Then you're gonna get an ad for my wine opener, some liquor product, or some other site, something, right, to get your mind off it. Because Facebook knows that what controls your likes and your habits? Your chemicals in your brain. Emotions. So where your chemicals in your brain come from? 5 different chemicals in your brain that I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna do it really quick, okay? Because this is amazing. Are you ready? Hold your money, I'm not done yet. Okay, your endorphins are what? Serotonin and dopamine. The minute that I dazzle you with an advertising campaign, I immediately have a rush of happiness, right? Dazzled, sparking joy. It's impulse. Right? You're already here. You see how they're all following me? Because they're joyful. They're like, oh my God, I've never heard this before, right? All right, you ready for this? Here's where it gets exciting. As I've brought you down through the happiness, the peaks and valleys of happiness, and I start making my voice go a little bit faster, I'm gonna bring your adrenaline upward, which is gonna cause you to decide to make one very interesting decision, which is to purchase something from me. Because adrenaline creates a purchase mechanism. Now, at the tail end of that pitch, there will be something that will appeal to 2 other chemicals in your body. One is testosterone, one is estrogen. Men and women have both. So if it's estrogen that you have a lot of in your body, and let's say that person is like maybe a little bit like off. Let's say in the pitch, maybe they don't really talk fast enough or they stutter a little bit. You're gonna wanna nurture them and purchase the product. If you have a little bit more testosterone in your body at the time. And by the way, this is scientific. I just learned this because of knowing how to trigger people, but the thing that's interesting about testosterone is if it's a controlling figure, like some of you in the room really like how I'm talking right now because it makes you feel safe and secure. It makes you feel like I know what I'm talking about because I'm telling you that I know and I'm really good at what I know and I have a really smart brain and I know a lot all the time, even though I didn't graduate high school. Do you see how you just felt that way? Sounded familiar, like somebody you might have heard on TV a couple of times, right? I just sounded like I knew what I was talking about. But that's the thing, you see? So at the end, when you feel that control feeling that you feel safe, now it makes you make a purchase. But guess what? Facebook's AI actually literally just took all that information from you, zapped the information about each one of you, assigned it to an audience, and now all those ads are gonna flow out again, bigger, better, faster, smarter. So in my company, we have an AI division, and we're working on building a very small prototype right now that can essentially serve up an ad without using a person to build the ad based on psychographic targeting. Psychographic targeting is just all the stuff you told us about you. And that is why people say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Any more questions? Sorry. I'm going to get it later. I'm not going to bend over.
I have a comment on that. So all those, what she said was correct if people are truthful. But how about I'm the Russian guy who's doing this. I want to put all the emotion, whatever they want me to do. So the results become inaccurate. Then what happened?
Well, and
Facebook
that's
and the AI will get it wrong, right?
Well, that's interesting because you think you can trick an AI, right? But an AI knows a lot of things. It's not just what you tell it, but it's what it's seeing. It's obvious it knows the code on your computer. It knows what time of day. Like, for example, we did ad campaigns in the US, and then we also were doing ad campaigns internationally. We sold to like 22 countries. And one thing that did happen, I will say, is so Facebook has this little magical piece of software called a pixel, right? And it's kind of like this little doohickey that follows people around that have visited your ad, right? And it gains information. And as you flex and manipulate that pixel, it gets smarter and smarter and smarter. And this is the thing that's the misnomer. A lot of people with Facebook think, oh, I have to target certain people, which that was true for a while. But Facebook actually was very smart because they dissected and learned all of this information. Guess what happens now? Now they are the biggest mass market ad engine because they know everything. They don't even know just who you are and how you say yes, but they know when you're going to say yes before you say it. Do you see? So it's not really about so much you tricking, like there's no way that a human could trick an AI at this point because we've already programmed it with so much information. And I've actually been told on the phone with Facebook that in some countries, we're running a level of media that we're actually educating Facebook's AI in like, let's say Eastern Europe, because I'm the only person in that area selling consumer products. So I might buy ads at 13 cents a unit, sell something for $60. That's a pretty high, you know, cost of or pretty low cost of media purchase, right? So I'm netting a very high profit. Where in the U.S. I might spend $20, right, to get a customer. But back to that main thing, when you're thinking about tricking it, it's really impossible because it's already learned so much. And the way that Facebook just changed recently was now they've taken away a lot of the options for targeting, like based on how someone looks or where they live or how much money they have, right? So now Facebook knows all that and they're not sharing it with us marketers anymore. So it makes it a little harder for us, but now Facebook buys better ads. So we spend more money.
One thing I would add is when I talked earlier about the various forms of IP. There was one I didn't mention is related, and that's antitrust. And hearing all this talk, I think some antitrust laws should be applied against Facebook.
I think that, and it's not Facebook. I think that don't use Facebook. But I don't think that's I think this is patent office. That fosters economic stability. It also makes
Okay, thank you. I understand that obtaining patent right is an essential part of the licensing, but sometimes when the patent process becomes unsuccessful, what would you advise to selling through the marketplace, or what would you advise?
It's going to be much harder to license your invention if it's not patented. And the reason is very simple. If I license my invention, company A, they're paying me a royalty. Company B, the company across the street from them or across the aisle from them at a trade can make the same product and not pay a royalty. My partner is actually at a competitive disadvantage. His cost of goods are higher than the stranger I have no relationship. It becomes much harder to license unless you have some other competitive advantage to bring to the table. Fast and first. I'm sorry. I think so. Can you hear me? Fast and first would be another competitive advantage. You say, listen, I'll license to you. We know next year there may be copycats, but if we brand it properly, that we're the original, and they come second. So now if you couple a brand name with your invention, that's one way of being unique. Another way are improvements. Maybe you can't license that original invention, or you can't patent that original invention, but there are improvements or other variations. Very often, we're able to couple it with sports licensing. So that cap that I was talking about earlier, well, even if it wasn't patented, if we coupled it with an NFL license, and we were the only one that had the NFL license for that kind of cap, now we've found other ways to protect it. So co-brand, brand name is one way, or fast and first is another way.
I was just going to also just add to your question, which is from a marketplace perspective, you certainly can sell an item that you don't have a patent for, but the risk associated with someone copying your intellectual property, is there, and there isn't much from a detection and enforcement. I mean, from a detection perspective, we could find it. From an enforcement perspective, we wouldn't be able to remove it unless we used your trademark or something. You could have a trademark and not a patent and still get some protection, but at some point you would be at risk.
I'm going to +1 him on that, but I have to say something to the inventors out here. So that's coming from the patent office. You've heard from lawyers. Now here's from an inventor, okay? So yes, protecting your IP is number one. We talked about this, right? Protect. But if you can't patent it, guess what? All the things I made money on weren't patented. They were old gold. But what did work was a trademark and a great pitch. Another thing that was very useful to me was copyright, because copyright is a civil and also a criminal infringement. So here's this gentleman that just walked in the room here, Peter Mendham. He's one of the only infomercial pitchmen that ever crossed over from infomercials to Facebook. He has a pitch on Facebook that has over 200 million views. And as a result of that, our product was sold, a faulty product was sold with his video multiple times. We have to send out 6 to 10 cease and desist letters a week because of it, because it was so commercializable, right? So with that being said, the US government actually has amazing task forces in place to help to work with copyrights that work between the DOJ, the US Border Customs and Protection, and the FBI. It's a little bit more complicated to do, but when you have a product, the most important thing you can do is, if you can patent it, do so. If you find a great attorney that can help you to change it a little bit so that you can make it patentable with a design or a unique utility, add something to it that maybe it doesn't necessarily need, just so that you can get that piece of paper, it's great. Trademark is very important, very easy to get, as long as you obviously have something that is not a common word or common name. I'm not a lawyer, I'm just an inventor. I just have learned the hard way. It doesn't cost a lot of money, a couple $100. You've got that thing written in stone, do it. And guess what? The copyright's really cool, because you can copyright a theatrical performance of your pitch. You can copyright your box placement. There's so many different things in a copyright that you can do. It's $35. And there's civil penalties, and there's a criminal task force as well, which, what's really cool about it is literally there's different kinds of damages, right, for patents, or I'm sorry, for copyright. So you have actual damages and compulsory damages. Actual is, let's say Stephen bought some of my product, and then he decided to rip me off. And I know that Stephen bought $1 million worth of merchandise from me. So a fancy attorney, somebody behind me could probably go, that's X amount of dollars. Stephen needs to pay Lindsay, right? Well, guess what happens? If Stephen continues to infringe, so let's say Stephen decides, I'm going to pitch every day at a street fair, or I'm going to pitch on Facebook every single time that he does that, it's a minimum $150,000 fine every time that he infringes on my copyright. So there's a lot of protections in the US government. Use them. Use them.
Wait. Got other guys waiting
So
here.
I have one tag on to that. There's also the reality that inventors alone have one voice, but the big box brands that kind of are the patent trolls and the stealers of ideas, they have huge conglomerates. So as inventors, you should join advocacy groups. And there's one, the UIA, that you can join. It's online, and I believe the patent office is sponsoring it or part of it, or there's a no. They're just here. They're here. So find them, join an advocacy group, because when you have one brand that's huge, that has big reach, they get to talk. But when you have a lot of little brands that get together and they speak as one, it speaks just as loud. So if you're worried about somebody stealing your product, join an advocacy group. It's uia.org.
So what I was going to say was kind of directed at what you just said, which is get active. So if you were here at the artificial intelligence panel, you would have heard us say, get copyrights, get design patents, get trademarks, get all these additional protections. But one of the reasons why you need those things is because patent law really has been pummeled over the last 10 years. And if you want to see the ability to protect your stuff go up considerably, if you want to see the value that you have in your patent, if you want to see the value of your products and services go up, call your congressman, tell them to repeal the American Invents Act. It was the biggest scam ever pulled on American inventors. And I say that not only as a patent attorney, I say it as an inventor and an entrepreneur. That's got to be repealed if you want to restore the rights you used to have. The best way to get your voice heard are through organizations like the United Inventors Association and others.
No, no.
Let him make his speech because you are.
Okay, I started the patent process back in 2002. And in 2002, I joined a local inventors group called INCA that used to actually meet up at NIH, and then it's been all over the place. However, since 2002, things have really changed tremendously, and the acceleration in the last few years in particular has been incredible. So I don't know how many people out here actually go to the USPTO website and exploit it, but there now is a thing called My USPTO. And so the patents I already have, I can go in and look about things with it. I can actually now program it to come back and tell me when I need to do my updates at 3.5, 7, 11. And those types of things are in there. There's a number of things pending. It won't give me my provisionals that I have. I have one pending, and it's not giving me that, but that's all coming. And so what I'm trying to say is that in the past few years, we're not just on a straight curve. I mean, we're on now a real accelerating curve that is bringing in a tremendous amount of assets. Just 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have a group like Lindsay. Just 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have a group like Dara. We have more people like a Warren, right? Warren Tuttle, who now is representing companies in order to bring things out. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a tremendous amount of resources out there that you can do on your own, but at some point you can't continue to do it on your own. But you really have to go out there and learn to exploit it as much as possible and do your homework in advance on searches, on provisionals, on other things like that. So first, find your local groups like INCA, like UIA. UIA, again, is a nonprofit thing. You know, there's another one, American Inventors Association, does a lot more of the political things for changing things. You have licensing executive. That's a bit, you know, a little bit more on the higher level when you're much more experienced, but still very useful. So in other words, there's tremendous amounts of resources out there that I've really learned in the last few years that even I am not coming anywhere close to exploiting. But at least I'm at the point now where I realize that, one, I can't even handle all this stuff on my own. I need to go out and find help. But that help is there, and you should not hesitate to go out and accept the help whenever you can get it. So my question now, back to the panel, is that you've all seen particular trends in the last year or two that have changed, not only at the patent level, but at local organizational levels and stuff like that, that can all benefit from it. Will each of you quickly sort of go through and tell me what is it you've seen that you think is coming real shortly, or that you've seen as the biggest trend that would benefit all of us as people who want to take products and take them to a next level? Thank you.
Oh, no. I thought you liked me. Oh, I get to be last. Yeah, that.
Yeah, so from my perspective, and I'm a small inventor, but there are a lot of local resources. People have talked about SBDC, things like that, and I actually look at SBDC like CarMax, start here, because even if they don't have what you need, they're going to point you in the right direction. But I live in Maryland. There's an organization called TEDCO, which is kind of like they're like almost like a small business administration at the state level. They do grants, they do funding, all kinds of stuff. I just did did a grant with them where they are helping me get a product CE certified to be able to sell in Europe. So, and you know, I think it was $7,500. You don't have to pay it back. And then I've used the the Maryland Department of Commerce has a program where they're trying to get people to export more. It's called Export MD, and if it has anything to do with marketing a product overseas, they'll give you grants. I got a grant from them for, I think it's $5,000 to translate my websites into other languages and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things out there. I'd say start going to meetup groups and things like that, and you'll find a plethora of information and organizations that are willing to help. So.
My name's Grant. I'm with the Patent Pro Bono program. And one of the big changes is obviously patent pro bono. If you look 5 years ago, nobody thought that they would be doing free legal advice to prepare and prosecute your patent applications. That's new, and I know there were some comments about the American Invents Act. One of the good things about it is Section 32 did authorize the USPTO to do work in that area, which is, like I said, a tremendous change, because before, pro bono work has been done sort of landlord, tenant, and those types of areas. So giving access to the legal system and access to intellectual property attorneys is something very new, and hopefully we'll continue to grow the program and even expand that even more.
I have to agree with that fully, that the pro bono program in this country is very unique compared to all other countries in the world, although we do have a global marketplace. In terms of patent rights, the ability to pursue it here in this country is slightly more feasible and not as strict as other countries. For the next 2 or 3 years, potential other aspects I see that are going to change is the result of a couple litigations between patent infringement. For example, my industry in aerospace, there's a small spaceflight company called Vector, which has in the past few weeks drastically reduced their operations due to an ongoing cease and desist letter with Lockheed Martin. That you know that name, you might not have known Vector. What's happening there is that an angel investor with Vector is pulling out because most of their money is going to that cease and desist and to ongoing litigation. And that's scary for startups, to have to recognize you're going to develop something only to see large corporations steal it. So I guess in the first 2 or 3 years from now, depending on the industry you're in, you might be able to see how independent inventors fare against large corporations.
You want me to go last?
So the question, to go back to the original question that was asked, was what are the trends that you're seeing? The trend that I'm seeing, companies like Lindsay, the group that was up here yesterday with Howie Bush and Krista, and there has never been a better time for individual inventors and aspiring entrepreneurs to get out and get your product out to market faster, quicker, and more efficiently. E-commerce first. Being able to put your product even on a small scale, from Etsy to customized websites, but there has never been the opportunity that you have today to get your product out there quicker, more efficiently, and just do it.
Okay, I agree with that, of course. We're going through a fundamental change in our society. Technology is racing ahead at an accelerating rate. It's hard for any of us to keep track of all this. I will say that the Patent Office is trying its best. That they had some dark years last administration, but with Commissioner Undersecretary Iancu, things are changing. I do agree that the AIA was one of the biggest injustices foisted on the American public. And there are aspects of that we probably keep with holding our nose, but there are many aspects of it that need to be remedied. The House is currently working on ways to fix that, especially Section 101, along with the Director Iancu. He is trying to address this as well. So we're right now in a tumult in the patent land. And that's why the other intellectual properties can kick in as best as you can work them into as we go through this dark period with patenting. I would recommend that even with patenting at this stage, that it can be done. Just be aware that there's going to be some difficulties, especially with the more abstract technologies.
I would like to echo Steve's comment earlier about the e-commerce being an opportunity that is beyond what we can think about in terms of what is happening. But from a protecting your brand perspective, the speed in which people are counterfeiting, our particular company works with a lot of Kickstarters who have created a new item, and we are actually protecting their intellectual property, and they haven't shipped their first item yet. And so I share that with you because while it is a wonderful opportunity from an e-commerce perspective to get your product out there, to spend the money to protect your intellectual property is key to the health and wellness of your brand. And I would just recommend that you factor that in the process of creating your brand. Is how are you going to protect it from a perspective of part of your budget designed to manage the complexity of global markets and global counterfeiting. It just has to be something on your radar screen for tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'll cover both from the legal perspective as well as from a development perspective. We've talked about the aspect of people will infringe your product quickly if you make any money off of it. I have many clients on Amazon that sell products, and as soon as they get really any traction, all of a sudden I just know the phone calls are going to come. Hey, I got a competitor. Hey, somebody's copied my stuff. How do I stop this? Some of those competitors don't even sell product. What really ticks off clients is when somebody knocks off their stuff and then the person who bought it tries to return that knocked off product to the original manufacturer. So that's another reason to protect your stuff. But this also means that you can prototype and you can build stuff and you can get it ready for market faster than ever before. And so, for example, things that used to take 2.5, 3 years to develop for a client of mine in the railroad industry are now taking inside of 4 and 5 months. It's actually the regulatory process that holds things up more than anything else. In software development, what used to take $5 million and more in budget to develop can now be done for under $300,000. So we can get products to market really rapidly. And it's only getting faster and it's only getting better. So that's a trend I see there. On the AIA, by the way, in case you didn't know, when you get your patent and it grants and it issues and you get the certificate and boy, you have a patent, companies can challenge your patent in a special court by judges that have been appointed by the Commissioner of Patents, and I believe there are many holdovers from the last. Well, there are many holdovers from the last administration. Big companies can go to that court, challenge your patent, and they will successfully defeat your patent about 2/3 of the time. And if they lose, they can go back again. And so that's one reason why the value of patents has gone down so much. And keep in mind, only the best patents are being challenged. Now, I happen to believe the U.S. Patent Office does a good job and they issue good, valid, and new and novel product patents. But unless you think the AIA is in their rate of defeat, well, how can I put it? If you think the AIA is right, you have to think the Patent Office is doing something terribly wrong on the inside. But now I'm pontificating. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's one reason why the AIA should be repealed. Call your congressman, talk to them about it.
So very briefly on the AIA and its prospects for being repealed. Good luck. In terms of the work that Director Iancu and the folks at USPTO have done to address some of the issues that we're talking about today that concern patent and rights holders, they've made a lot of improvements. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce publishes an annual IP index ranking over 50 countries. The patent system in the United States dropped to number 12 2 years ago. It's now back to number 2 because some of the very things that Director Iancu has done to reform the PTAB process. So let's give credit where credit is due. when you talk about trends, I'm going to take a different tact. We live in a transformational time. It's an incredible time for individual creators and inventors to connect with consumers. There are more platforms, more opportunities to direct market to folks and connect with consumers to sell your products or your creative work than ever before. That's a tremendous thing. So let's not mistake the fact that the Chamber applauds transformational technologies and opportunities to enter into the marketplace in new and novel ways. The concern that I have in terms of the biggest trend in the last 10 years is an erosion of understanding and respect for the fundamental importance of getting a return on your invention or your creation, because people are conflating intellectual property rights with either an impediment or somehow a problem for folks who want access to affordable medicines, who want to get products for a cheap price, who want to get creative works for free on the internet. So when you look at how intellectual property is perceived throughout the world, there is literally a well-funded and well-organized campaign that is going on to undermine rights holders' ability to protect their creative works or their innovative works. So when you talk about talking to policymakers, or you talk about doing business in markets where people do not respect property rights and don't have a traditional perspective on them as we did, IP is enshrined in our Constitution, but I can tell you it's a foreign concept to a lot of people in different parts of the world. And from a problematic standpoint, the diminishment of intellectual property as a concept and as a way for rights holders to get a return on their creation and their invention is the most concerning thing that we confront right now at a global scale.
I do want to say Commissioner Iancu, Director, thank you, has done an incredible job. And I salute his efforts, absolutely. And I think that the men and women of the U.S. Patent Office are doing an amazing job and have done an amazing job, despite the act.
They want me to be fast, so I will. But that's what I was going to plus one him. The biggest thing I think, again, as an entrepreneur, I'm not sure, I know me and Stephen are entrepreneurs, and Ruth is too. And I believe all of you are lawyers, or you all look nice like you are. I don't know. I'm just profiling you for Facebook later. No, what I was going to say, though, is as an entrepreneur, what happens in this situation, so the Patent Office is like a really fun, nice place. Each one of these people took their day-to-day to educate us, and I love them. I mean, this is a wonderful place. It's not the IRS. It's a happy place, full of innovation. So embrace the U.S. Patent Office. Sorry, this is my commercial for them. The second thing is that if you think that the Patent Office is doing something wrong, let's say, for example, like with patents and not taking care of inventors or something, that's just propaganda. It's not their fault. They're an administrative entity that helps you protect something, okay? If you don't use the confines properly, you don't hire the right attorney, and you also don't know how to run a business and aren't competitive, you're going to have issues. It's like blaming a lawyer for losing a case. Your case wasn't good enough. The judge might not have liked you, or maybe your attorney was off that day. Maybe you drank too much the night before. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily their fault. There's all these different reasons why things happen. But you have to look at yourself. You are a business owner. You're an innovator. You guys are the smart ones. These people are just administering and trying to help you. The second thing I would say is, if you don't like what's happening, he said it, get out there and change it. You're right here in Washington, D.C. It's pretty easy. Second thing is, if you want to learn what the corporate companies do, this is a wonderful thing for the Patent Office. I trademarked 11 different names for one product. And on Facebook, different audiences buy different cultural concepts and names, which that's where innovation's actually going. Because you can't sell one mass market product under one trademark anymore, because everyone wants something different. So that's interesting. That makes you more competitive in the marketplace. And big companies have been doing this for hundreds of years, actually. So anyway, thank you for coming. Here we go, Ruth.
As an inventor, I just want to clarify, as much as I know, is that I think there is a little bit of confusion because the USPTO is one entity and the PTAB is a different one. And I think the USPTO is doing their job. I think PTAB is doing something else. So we need to be clear about that. That's my opinion. And to the gentleman in the back, you mentioned those inventors group. Which ones did you mention? The two groups that you mentioned. No. Yeah. Well, just so you know, because we are members of that group.
Yeah, I
Nancy
know,
is
I
too,
know. But no
that-
one was mentioning it.
I-
I
I-
wanted to make sure
Yeah, I
that
just
at
want
the
to
end of
say
the
that
day,
I think they're also representing us as any mentors. They're trying to protect our rights. I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, you can help me on that. You're part of the group. They're not political entities. They're just representing us. Okay, I misunderstood then, but yeah.
No, they're just literally groups of inventors that got together that are just protecting each other and working as a team.
So we're going to begin to wrap this up. And what I'm going to do is we're going to move into the end of the day. And I'm going to have comments. And then Nathaniel Ferguson is going to come up with some closing. But the things that I need for you to do is ask, did you learn anything? Okay, so now we want to learn from you because we're asking you to complete the survey to tell us what you learned, what we need to change, how can we do it better, how can we bring you better resource information and make InventionCon 2020 a super success that exceeds what you experienced here today. So the surveys are on the table, and if you'll take them up to the registration desk, some of you may receive gifts while supplies last when you turn them in. And then, so being your moderator today, I want to thank you so much for being kind to me and allowing me to do my job and flash up 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then we end it. So thank you very much, and that's coming from the heart from Dennis Forbes. So now we're going to have Nathania to come up, and we may end a little bit early, but I think that may be a good thing. It's been a learning day.